The opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of our sponsors and are only those of the individual commentators. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good evening and welcome to the Raben Report. I'm your host, Elliot Raben, and with me is part of my expert panel, Christina Mangiola. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am phenomenal. I am just trying to get the show going.
Amazing.
But Jerome is away today, and filling in for him is Keyaan Nejad. Keyaan, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Good to hear. So, why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
Sure. So I'm a fourth-year politics and governance student. I am part of the Ryerson Campus Conservatives, the vice president, RCC for short. And this is actually my last year at Ryerson, so it's a huge honor to be part of the show. And yeah, I'm just excited to dive into this topic. It's really exciting. So thank you so much for having me, Elliot.
Well, thank you for being here. And of course, joining the panel as our guest this week is Tonya Wiseman. How are you, Tonya?
I'm good, Elliot. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. You as well. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
So, my name's Tonya. I actually just graduated from Ryerson this past June. My major is was politics and governance, and I have a double minor in sociology and philosophy. Right now I'm pretty much just taking a break here, and I plan to go to master's at York for poli-sci next year. So, hope that works out.
Awesome. Well, you know, it's always great to have people who are in politics on the show. That is what the show is about. But it's also about current affairs, right? And we're here to debate these things. So that's the key. Now, I'm just getting ready. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll be talking about our main topic, which is body positivity. But first, let's take a look at our top stories in our weekly update, starting with the United States vice presidential debate, number one. Very different from the presidential debate, a lot more calm. There were some key moments such as Kamala Harris saying, "I'm speaking." What did you guys think of that and the whole debate?
I feel like that was so much more professional than when Biden told Trump to shut up. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's true. She is talking. You gotta be respectful of whichever party's speaking. So I don't see that as problematic. I think both of them were super professional. And I hate pens. So I thought they both handled themselves really well.
Interesting. Well, you know, one thing that's to note about the I'm Speaking is apparently she already had T-shirts made and mugs made about it. So she was planning to say that during the show, during the debate, and she knew it would happen.
Are you kidding me?
I wish I was.
I like Kamala Harris. That's no good. I don't like that.
Interesting.
Like that.
Yeah, Keyaan?
Well, it's interesting because I actually have a completely different opinion on Kamala Harris as a whole. I think her whole composure, her rhetoric, everything about her is ingenuous. I mean, the way she talks is just, it seems so planned. And when people talk about politics and people in political office being so fake and just not putting on a real authentic display, Kamala Harris really represents that. And I just think that she really showed that too in that debate. I think when she said to Mike Pence, "Oh, I'm speaking," I mean, sure, it's better than Biden telling Trump to shut up, but that's not a standard that a president and a vice president should be compared to. I think that if you're going to be running for office or being a vice president, you have to deliver yourself in the best possible way, and telling someone I'm talking is just not the way to go.
Interesting. Tonya?
As far as Kamala Harris goes, I actually agree more with Keyaan about just her honesty and like legitimacy as just a politician. I think she has anyone heard of mansplaining?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that like her so mansplaining,
A friend of the show would call it femsplaining.
like femsplaining. It wasn't.
Ooh, who's
I
that friend
honest-
of the show? Please enlighten us.
Gonna call them out on the show.
No, I didn't. I'm not naming names.
Okay.
I
well,
do think she was also. It seemed like she was given more time, anyways. As far as that's just my interpretation. It could be totally off, but so it was a defense mechanism against, like, she wanted to display more power because she was debating a man, a Republican man. So I think a lot of it had to do with just the low key, like, democratic values.
Yep.
Yeah.
If I could also just jump in there, I think it's important to note that prior to her saying I'm speaking, the reason that Mike Pence had decided to press her was because of the Supreme Court packing, and that was a big issue that needed to be addressed, and a lot of people want to know the answer. When Kamala Harris first answered, she completely sidestepped the question, and so when she went on a rant, Mike Pence decided to then interject and say, well, listen, I get that, but why don't you actually talk about the issue at hand, which is Supreme Court packing? And she didn't do it. She decided to say, I'm talking, because she knows that fundamentally the people who are watching her are right in that demographic where they're going to say, yes, queen, preach, slay, you know, all that kind of thing. And it worked, because you saw online, everyone who was watching her would say, yes, she is the person to beat Mike Pence. She is just so fierce, so powerful, strong, independent lady. Anyone who opposes to this is just, being a misogynist or is against women who are powerful. And that's a straw man attack, because it's nothing to do with the issue at hand. The issue at hand is simply that she wasn't ready, and her rhetoric is terrible.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you bring up the court packing situation, because that is a huge topic right now, especially today. There was more scrutiny by the Senate Judiciary Committee about Amy Coney Barrett's qualifications and such, and she even said that she knew that they would come after her religion and the fact that she's a mother. Do you guys believe that, first of all, she's going to be confirmed? And second, do you believe that if she is confirmed and Joe Biden does win, if they're going to pack the court? Christina?
I actually don't know. I can't speak on it because I really have no idea.
Tonya?
I also have no idea, but I mean, as far as Amy being confirmed, like, I don't see any issues with that. I know it's end of the term and everything, but legally I think that everything's okay. I don't have any issues with it.
Keyaan?
I'm not sure about the future.
Yeah, I think so. To the first part of your question, I think, yeah, she will be confirmed. Now, if Biden and Harris will end up hacking the court, it's difficult to say, because I think they want to, but if they're actually going to do it, I think is a whole different question. So, I don't know, we'll see.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of what happens.
It's definitely, and speaking of the debate, the second presidential debate was canceled because, first of all, Trump had coronavirus. He's magically cured after 3 days.
Was it
Is he
4
actually
days?
cured?
Yeah.
Listen, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows at this point?
Yeah.
But he says he's cured. He says he's feeling great.
Yeah.
And the problem is the presidential debate committee said, well, we're not going to have an in-person debate because we don't want any issues to arise.
Right.
And Trump refused to have a virtual debate. So has this happened in recent history that a presidential debate was canceled?
Wasn't Trudeau?
I don't think so.
Well, presidential. Let's stay to
Oh,
the
sorry.
U.S. Yeah.
Well, I would say that if they do plan on going virtual for this, I think it's a huge mistake, just because the logistical problems, the issues of, like, muting one of them when they're talking instead of just telling them to stop. So I think that could be problematic, and overall, I think it's just going to be a disaster if they do end up doing a virtual debate.
For a debate about the two potentially most important people in the world, they really needed to add a mute button. I don't understand how they didn't have a mute button during the debate. But the number one thing that we have to talk about is that fly. The fly
Yep.
that came.
Absolutely loved it.
You did?
I loved it. And apparently, I think it's on either Netflix or Crave. There was one of my coworkers posted their story today, and they said that there's a horror movie, I think, called The Fly, and it's, like, trending now on Crave, which is just hilarious to me. But I found it pretty funny.
Well, Sorry, I was just gonna say that they've also started selling merchandise on the Biden-Harris website about like a little fly swapper, and so
But I think that came out.
Oh no, yeah, for sure. I'm not saying it's planned by any
planted
means.
the
No. No, I just mean like they are using it to fund their campaign though, just through selling that, which is smart. I'm not saying it's bad or anything, but it's just funny.
Speaking of funding campaigns, the Democratic Party is a lot more social media savvy this time around. So they have their own TikTok. I see it Biden-Harris coalition. So they're really trying. They're really trying
Settle
to get
for Biden, right?
Yeah.
Settle for him? You think?
No, that's what the slogan.
That's what they
Their
want.
slogan on social media. All the Gen Z kids are saying "settle for Biden." So it's definitely a new thing that's happening this time around, and I mean we'll see if it works, but I don't think it will.
We have a comment from Marsha coming in. She says Ruth Bader Ginsburg sent the fly. And speaking of that fly, I think the same fly appeared today on Amy Coney Barrett's shoulder.
Here's
So, that fly is clearly doing well. I assume they're
Really
paying the
hanging
fly.
on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Keep flying.
flying.
But let's move on to our next topic in our weekly update, which is a coronavirus update. So, to put it nicely, shit is hitting the fan. And we had 1,500 cases in the past 2 days. And when we did our coronavirus episode, we said that the highest was 700. Now we hit over 900. Quebec is hitting over 1,000 cases a day. Where did this come from? Why is this happening?
I think there's a bunch of reasons. We started to see numbers go up when we started to reopen everything. Malls reopened, indoor dining reopened, schools, that kind of thing. So I think we were seeing numbers go up then. But another thing is that we're doing more testing. And there's even, I'm pretty sure one of the things that has happened is numbers that were not previously reported are now being reported and are being included in the daily updates. So those numbers that we're seeing, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe those numbers that we're seeing may not be accurate. Not that they're not accurate, but if they're including numbers that weren't previously included, there's a reason they're obviously going to be higher if they're including old numbers, because those are cases that would be resolved by now. If they're cases from a few months ago even.
Yeah, so I don't want to completely divert from the topic, and I'm still going to talk about corona, but I just want to also note that a lot of times when there's a coronavirus case, they also include people, for example, if they had a car crash and then they had coronavirus, that counts as a death on behalf of coronavirus. If you have cancer and then you got coronavirus last minute, you died of coronavirus. So it's not to say that, this is not a pandemic, which it absolutely is, but it should be noted that there is a lot of complexities into how these numbers have come about, and we should take note of that when we're looking at the numbers. And with that being said, to answer the question about coronavirus increasing in numbers, I think it's definitely unfortunate. And, ideally it would be nice if we could, keep open and prevent things from going up. But I think ultimately it is the right decision to close down for a little while and see. But I don't know how much longer we can do that. The economy is suffering so much from this.
The thing you mentioned about closing down, so Doug Ford, our premier, he put Toronto, Peel, and Ottawa, the 3 hot spots, into a modified stage 2. He closed indoor dining, he closed gyms, he closed this and that, but schools remain open.
Yeah, it's an odd.
Is that Christina? You have a disdain for Doug Ford.
I do.
Why is that?
Can't stand him. A lot to do with the way that he's handled education, but I will say, in his defense, despite my my dislike for him, I think he did a really good job with handling the pandemic. My respect totally went up for him. I think he handled it exactly how he should have. The only thing recently would be that he reopened schools and is closing things like the inside of restaurants, closing malls. but isn't closing schools where there's hundreds of people packed into one building together. And I think we discussed it last time that, children have stronger immune systems. They're less likely to, die or get very ill from COVID. But that doesn't mean that they're not then taking that disease back home and giving it to their parents or their grandparents who are high risk. So I think it's, I think the priorities are off, because if you're going to close the inside of restaurants where there's distancing, close schools where kids are not social distancing.
And it's interesting, just in terms of the closures, my grandma made a really good point, which is Peel, Ottawa, Toronto, those restaurants are closed. What's to stop somebody from driving up to York Region, going to a restaurant, and then going back home?
Also, one thing that makes absolutely no sense is if you're going to leave primary education open, why can't adults go to university? Because they're obviously going to comply with rules like mask wearing, I think, more than little kids and stuff. So the precautions, they just follow a lot stronger. And I think it's wrong for if little kids can go to school that we can't safely attend our lectures.
Yeah, and I think that ultimately it really comes down to, this is a very new thing that Ontario is trying to handle, and so there's going to be a lot of contradictions in the way they do things. I think that they're doing the best they can as of right now. There certainly could be things that improved. I mean, no government is perfect ever, obviously. But I think it should be worth noting that, things hopefully will get better, and I'm an optimist, so I hope to see that things do get better in the coming months.
And there's a lot going on federally as well, which we don't exactly have too much time to talk about it, but Trudeau set aside about $1 billion for vaccines. Johnson & Johnson just had a massive pause, roadblock. There were repercussions to one of the people's reactions, so pulled out my stock from there.
I actually still have mine in.
You do?
I still have my Johnson & Johnson, yeah. We'll see, right?
Not a fan. Johnson and goodbye.
Yeah,
so,
Johnson and goodbye.
Lastly, let's move on very quickly to something that Christina, you're a big fan of, which is a single-use plastics ban in Canada by 2021. Christina.
I love it. I think.
What's the plan?
I think that this news is great. The only thing that I see going wrong is this isn't going to be super easy to accomplish within a year. That's there's a lot of things that need to go into it, so I do think it's a bit too optimistic to say we're going to ban it in 2021. I don't know if we can turn it around that quickly, but I do think it's a good start. Obviously, single-use plastic isn't the reason our environment's gone to shit. That's not the sole reason. I definitely think it's a contributor. The less waste we can produce, the better. I've actively started in recent years using reusable straws, reusable cups, because it's actually pointless to use a reusable straw if you're not using a reusable cup. Cutlery. Just things like that. I try to, I go out to eat, get takeout, and I say, don't put any cutlery in it. And I mean, I'm just one person. It's going to barely make a difference. But if everybody's on board with that, then we can maybe do something.
And I guess that's what we can hope for everybody to come together and make a change. But now let's move on to our main topic, which is body positivity. Now, I do want to say that we had planned to discuss the conflict taking place between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and while we did have guests lined up to represent both sides, we realized that it is a very, very sensitive and rapidly evolving situation, and have therefore decided to hold off on that discussion. As such, let's now get to our real topic, which, as mentioned, is body positivity. With the term body positive coming into fruition in the 1960s, the current wave of the movement started in 2012, initially focusing on challenging unrealistic feminine beauty standards. As the movement grew, the message shifted to a different approach, rather that all bodies are beautiful. Simply put, body positivity is the idea that people should feel happy with and proud of their body, no matter the shape or size. But is that always the case? Should we always be happy with our bodies? On today's show, we find out. From personal experiences to societal norms and even the psychological implications of body positivity, nothing will be left off the table. As a reminder, we are live on Facebook, so make sure to comment on our feed to have your thoughts read live on air. So we're going to start with the same question that we asked our audience, which was, do you support the body positivity movement? And Christina, what were the results?
Okay, so on Instagram, our results were 59% said yes and 41% said no. On Facebook, we had 40% said yes and 60% said no.
Interesting. So generally, what was the consensus, you would say?
It's actually funny because it's like it's opposite. On Instagram, more people said yes, but on Facebook, more people said no. So I guess it's somewhere in the middle.
Now I'm going to ask the same question to all of you. Are you for body positivity? Yes or no? Very quickly, Tonya.
Yes.
Yes. Keyaan?
No.
Christina?
Yes.
Yes. Interesting. And I am the host, so my opinion stays quiet. I just poked the bear. So let's get into why. Why do you support the body positivity movement? We're going to start with Keyaan because you say no.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you support it?
Yeah, so I think that fundamentally there should be a distinction between being body positive and just being an absolute, for lack of a better term, asshole towards someone who is overweight. But I think the movement has gone in such a bad direction that now, it's kind of lost the plot. Like fundamentally, I support a healthy body, someone who is healthy, and, that is what body positivity should be about, but it's not. And so that's kind of where my opinion changes from these two, I'm assuming, in some capacity. So no, I'm not for the body positive movement as it stands today.
Tonya, you are our special guest for today. Why are you for body positivity?
Well, by definition, positivity and being happy and comfortable in the body that you're in, I don't think is necessarily bad. But when you get to, like Keyaan said, the body positivity movement as a whole, sure, I can see in certain areas where it might have gone a little too extreme to the point where, an unhealthy body might be, too, or it could be considered healthy when that person's actually struggling just because they don't look healthy kind of thing. So,
Christina?
Yeah, I agree with what Tonya said. As a whole, I think that it's a great, concept and thing to tell young people, men and women, to, be happy with the way they look, because we don't all look the same, and healthy bodies within the how do I explain this? Healthy bodies can range in size, they can range in shape, but obviously you can be outside of that realm, which is where I have an issue with body positivity, because I don't believe that we should be pushing unhealthy lifestyles or body types. But I do think as a whole we should be spreading the message that it's okay to be happy with the way you look, and we can be healthy and look different. Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things that I want to make clear here, because you did in the introduction say that it started off as a movement that said not all bodies are the same and we should be appreciative of, the fluctuation, how everyone looks. But we should take note that it's not that anymore. It's very similar to the feminist movement, where it started off as something that had a real value in society, but it's been switched to something else. One of the things I take issue with is this idea that happiness is synonymous with healthy, because it's not. There's a difference between being healthy and being happy. I can be happy when I'm on opioids and, I'm absolutely high out of my mind. I'm the happiest person alive because the adrenaline rush and the dopamine rush is significant. But as soon as I'm off that, the reality hits, I'm going to die. And that's what happens to people who are severely obese. And so it's not to say that body positivity is a bad thing as a whole, because it's not. We should be appreciative of the different body types, and not everyone is the same. I think it's absurd that we have, Victoria's Secret as something that is the only body type, if that's the case. But people don't look at it that way, and we shouldn't start to look at it that way either. But we should recognize that there are some people who are severely obese or severely anorexic, and we should try and help them rather than tell them, no, this is fine, be happy in your body, because happiness is the ultimate thing. It's not. Happiness is fleeting. That's not something that's going to make you live long term. When reality hits, your health will come in and kill you.
Now, you went through a transformation in your health. We're going to move to personal situations. Why don't you tell our audience what you went through and why?
Sure. So again, I think it's important to note that happiness was not something that could be obtained forever. And that's something I took notice of fairly, late in high school. I was 18 years old. And I realized that I need to get healthier. I was quite overweight. Not quite overweight. I was 200 pounds at 5'8". So, you can get pretty chunky at that point. And so I took it upon myself to make a change. And so if it wasn't for the fact that there were people around me who said, Keyaan, listen, you're not looking too healthy and you need to make changes. Do you feel healthy? Do you feel okay? No? Okay, so make a change. And so I started going to the gym. I started looking into diets. This was not some kind of a pressure or suppression on my health as an individual. This was something that helped me be the best version of myself. And of course, since then, my weight has fluctuated, a lot. It goes up and down 5-10 pounds. Sometimes if I'm going to go into an extreme challenge, I'll be extremely fit for like a month. Like recently I did a carnivore diet. But then I realized that it's not something that makes me happy for the long term. So I go back to something that's sustainable for me. But that's different than to say, be happy eating Big Macs every day. Be happy being severely obese, because it's better to do that than to change entirely. And that's just a fundamental, poorly structured argument that people make in the body positivity movement today.
So when you, I guess, did you feel like when you went through the change, did you feel like you were going to improve your happiness?
Oh, as soon as I started, because the fact that I was trying to obtain a goal was in itself something that made me happy, Everyone needs direction in their life. I think that if you don't have any kind of direction you're heading into, you're lost. You feel like you don't have a purpose on this life, and it's so important that we have meaning in our lives. And that in itself was a meaning that I was able to derive from what I was doing. The meaning for me at that point was to improve my life, have a better, healthy lifestyle, and make sure that I was fulfilling my potential as an individual.
Now, the other side of the argument would say that when people told you that you're not looking so healthy, are you sure you're healthy? People would say, well, you're not a doctor, so why are you giving me that advice? Do you believe that it should be just a doctor who tells you that?
Well, look, there's a significant difference between someone saying, hey, you're fat and you look stupid and you're pathetic, right? That's obviously the wrong approach. But if someone tells me, Keyaan, you're not looking too good, you need to lose a couple of pounds just to make yourself feel better, I know that'll help you. And listen, I'll be there to help you. I can provide you with a diet plan. I can provide you, like a gym plan, anything like that. That's going to help me. It's not going to stifle my confidence or as a whole make me feel like less of a human. I think it's absolutely necessary that that's what we do as a society, is we help uplift people by telling them that they do have shortcomings. How else is someone going to improve? If you don't tell them that they're, they have flaws in them and they should improve them, then how is someone going to improve as an individual?
Fair point. Let's move on to Tonya. You also have a very interesting story. So first of all, what's your take on what Keyaan said, as well as your personal story?
Well, first the word perfection, Keyaan, you mentioned. I think generally society, boys, girls, everybody, we strive for our ideal sort of gendered, whatever it is, perfection, the way that we're supposed to be, body image. And all in all, I think the body positivity movement could go wrong, or has gone wrong, in the sense where it's created this idea that body image or physical appearance is the most important, or more important than it actually is, I think. So that's a problem I see. My own experiences growing up, actually, I was never overweight. I was actually, if anything, underweight, and I'm a small person. I am now a small person. I'm not underweight, but I'm just like a tiny build. And I want to bring up something that critiquing bodies, like, it goes both ways. Yes, we see all over the media people being very mean and critical towards larger bodies, specifically larger women. But also it goes both ways, because I experienced growing up and now too being small, people thinking I'm, anorexic or I don't eat enough. And I'm sure other girls experience this as well who are small. But I mean, I don't like that. And I know that I'm healthy and I have a substantial diet. So it does go both ways.
Yeah, no,
Keyaan?
I agree 100%. I think that, and I briefly did mention in the beginning too, that people who are severely underweight, it would be better for them if they were told, listen, you need to put on some weight for your own mental health, for your own physical health. If you want to be the best version of yourself, you have to eat more. So of course, it's not, something that is specific to overweight people. And male or female, if you are looking underweight or overweight, it's in your best interest to get in the right shape. And that doesn't mean fitting into societal or fitting into like the best physique of your life. It just means the standard physique of what is so nice, like a six-pack and all that.
So what is the standard, and is it healthy that we've made certain things the standard? So for example, you mentioned Victoria's Secret models. Is it healthy that they're the standard of beauty? Is it healthy that six-packs are the standard of male physique and beauty?
No, I would say no, it's not. But with that being said, a lot of these shows are not exactly something that you should look up to as, a standard like way of living. I think that it's ultimately a business practice where, they want to get people looking, and we are humans. And so we are attracted to things that look, very nice. Doesn't mean it's healthy. It just means that it makes for good money. It makes for good business and for viewership. So that's fundamentally what those shows come down to.
But if we're attracted to those things, isn't that the ideal? Tonya?
I also just think we've artificially been trained, all of us, to sort of think the same thing's attractive, or one type of image is attractive. So, but really, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. But just social media doesn't exemplify that.
But is there some sort of definition of what is beautiful?
Yeah.
So what is it?
Well, like Keyaan said, so for women, it would be the Victoria's Secret model. And I think it's getting more severe, actually, for each gender. And then the opposite, the male would be like larger build, six-pack, muscular, dominant looking.
So sorry, so can you just clarify again what was your question? Because I want to avoid dancing around.
Yeah,
it again,
no,
so.
but let's move forward then to societal norms, nutrition, psychological impact, the second part of our show. How has society promoted this movement? So number one, I watched it 2 nights ago, and I know you watched it, Christina. You're a big fan as well, Tonya. Rihanna's Fenty show.
Yeah.
So do you want to tell our audience a little about the show and the premise?
Yeah, so just Savage Fenty, her lingerie brand, the whole point is to be inclusive, to represent, all bodies. So she had all different colors, shapes, sizes. She obviously ran into some controversy.
Which was
she had models in hijabs, I believe.
Yep.
And was playing music that was considered insensitive by the Muslim population.
It was remixed Muslim music, right? That was
yeah. So
yeah.
I'm not 100% sure on what the music was. But so she faced some pretty serious backlash, people saying that if she were a white woman or, different circumstances, she would have been in a lot more trouble. The way I see it is she's been getting quite a bit of shit for it. She's losing fans and people are mad about it. I think that, and this kind of ties into cancel culture last week, but I think we need to be able to, and this is what we were talking about last week, that we need to let people need to be held accountable, but they also need to be given a chance to grow and learn. She put out a statement and she acknowledged that she made a mistake. She was unaware. She didn't do it with bad intention. That doesn't mean that people weren't offended or affected by it, because intention doesn't always matter. But I think we need to allow there to be a conversation and let her grow from her mistakes, because we all you learn new things every day, and obviously this is way more sensitive than just learning something new every day. But
what's interesting, though, I didn't hear about that controversy, but she had Bella and Gigi Hadid, who are Muslim, and they were wearing hijab, so I didn't even know that was an issue. But
well, that's like one thing you'd think that like there's always so many people, and there's a whole team behind these things, and and it always baffles me. You think somebody would catch it, and especially two Muslim models, and they didn't even pick up that it was, they didn't push back, they didn't flag it.
Listen, you pay them, they do what you tell them.
No, exactly. Yeah, totally.
But the Fenty show, as you mentioned, promotes all different kinds of bodies, right? But what's interesting is that the famous models that were part of the show are all in skinny shape, in all Victoria's Secret model shape. What does that say about the body positivity movement? That, sure, look at all these women of different sizes, but, the most important people of the show are ideal size.
It's fundamentally virtue signaling. There's nothing more about it. That's really what it's come down to. And I think also, in addition to that, the biggest problem that these type of shows have, or I guess people who watch them, is that they're so focused on trying to find what beauty is that they're actually forgetting that the main reason that we have these discussions is because you want to be comfortable in your own skin. And so when you're constantly looking to someone and you're trying to find, who can best represent who you want to be, you're externally looking for something that will find you comfort. And it's not going to happen. It has to happen internally. And so, again, when it comes down to it, you have to stop looking at what is beautiful. You have to look at what is healthy, because that's what it comes down to. And the body positivity movement, again, doesn't display that. It displays what is a beautiful body that makes you happy, which is just, it's stupid.
I think it's also important to note, like, and like Tonya said, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. We all have different preferences. We all find different things attractive. And your ideal body type, so long as it's healthy, may not be the same as somebody else. So somebody who's a slimmer build, who's healthy, that might not be your ideal body type. That might not be what you're attracted to, and that might not be what you're trying to obtain. The same way that if your goal is to put on some weight in a healthy way, and some people are attracted to curvier women or men, it's all based on personal preference. So that's another thing to note.
So I just want to press the two of you guys then, because initially when the show started, it was about the body positivity movement as it stands today. So as it stands today, it does include obese people as being okay in the movement. That you should be happy yourself. So are you guys in alignment with that, or are you guys in disagreement?
Well, I think so. The way that I see it is that I don't think anybody should be shamed, told that they're unattractive, that they're ugly, that they don't deserve love because of the way that they look. I think that inherently is wrong, but I also don't think that we should tell people that it's okay to be, so what I'm saying is everybody deserves love and everybody deserves respect, but that doesn't mean we have to tell people it's good to be obese and you're perfectly fine being obese.
Okay, so would fat acceptance, so for lack of a better term then, because I know there's another version of this, instead of body positivity, it's fat acceptance. So
Yeah.
Are you guys in support of fat acceptance? Or are you guys against
because
it?
you can be fat and healthy.
Okay, but
I don't like the words or labels, but yeah, because you can. Yeah.
So, but in that regard though, would you still, if you saw someone was on a macro level, if you're going to be advertising this, is it more damaging to the individual who's watching it, who may be fat and they've done it because of their own volition, or if it's because of an actual disease? In general, when you're looking at that on the screen, it doesn't specify it's okay to be fat only if it's a disease. It just says it's okay to be fat. So what I'm trying to get at is it better then to just specify in general, aim for a healthy body weight? That's what should be advertised, not it's okay to be fat.
Yeah, no, I think that I can get behind that. I think I agree with that. Just to kind of go back to our own personal experiences, I suffered many years of anorexia and an inability to put on weight because of psychological issues. And it wasn't until about my second year of university that I finally started to kind of pack on the pounds. And now some people consider my body type to be curvier. That's 40 pounds later. But I definitely experienced being shamed for my body type when I was anorexic. I was, severely underweight. I remember coming back from university and having family members and friends saying, "Are you okay? You're really skinny. Did you lose weight?" And it wasn't like I was ever big to begin with. So they really took notice to it because I was skinny to begin with. And then I came home from university, the opposite of freshman 15.
Right.
And, I was I was in, people didn't mean to shame me, but I was being shamed. I was being told, "Oh my gosh, Christina, you lost so much weight. You have no boobs anymore. So I suffered a lot from that. And now that I'm bigger, not bigger, I'm not a big girl, but I'm curvier. And I think I struggle with now how to feel about myself and I think this is all, I don't know, I don't think we'll ever all be able to achieve our ideal bodies. I think even people, all these models on Instagram and stuff, I think even they would change things about themselves.
They most likely struggle with it the most, to be honest, because
their
they
whole
have to
image is
fit
based
into
off of
exactly, yeah.
But do you think that if you weren't, let's say, shamed, or if people didn't say, "Listen, Christina, you're very skinny," do you feel like if that wasn't the case, then you wouldn't have put on the weight and thought, "You know what, maybe I should be healthy"? Because for me personally, in terms of my experience, I was always fat and I had a stomach, I had this and that, but you know what? And it was always about, I wanted to get fit, but I wasn't ready to do it. But even though people didn't say necessarily like you're fat, although I was bullied for it 100%, even though people necessarily didn't say, "Listen, you got to go lose weight," it was something I needed to do. And if people were to tell me, "You're good, you're okay, stay the way you are," would that really have been good for me? So I finally started going to the gym. During the majority of quarantine, I lost 25 pounds. I was working, and I feel much better about myself.
I think for me it was a combination of the two. I knew that I was struggling with my weight. It wasn't just me looking in the mirror and going, "Oh wow, I'm way too skinny." It was obviously it's a mental disorder, so I was struggling on different levels. It was depression and anxiety, and it contributed to an eating disorder, and so I already knew that I had to address the anxiety and the depression. The anorexia, being underweight, that just came with it. But once I had once I came to terms with the fact that I needed to change other aspects of my life, such as my mental health, and I started getting medication, I started going to therapy, that's when I started putting the weight on. And so I think I was able to recognize myself that I wasn't feeling good. I was, I could sleep all day. I had no energy, could barely walk upstairs without getting completely out of breath, could only handle maybe a meal a day. And I was weak. I was irritable. I was angry. I was moody. I was like the most miserable person. And I knew that wasn't how I was supposed to be feeling. So besides the fact that people were making comments on it, I did recognize it within myself. And I think,
This ties into something I wanted to talk about, which is the psychological implications with being body positive. Keyaan?
So I think that, especially now more than ever in our culture, people, and this would be more in relation to last week's cancel culture, but people are so afraid of hearing what they need to do to improve themselves. They're so afraid to hear that they're not doing their best and reaching their full potential. And so a lot of the times our minds try to find the path of least resistance. And so in other words, if you're someone who is doing something and it's not challenging you ultimately, you're still more inclined to go that way because you'd rather do that than to go a totally different way struggle and get to the best possible version of yourself. And so it ties into this movement is it doesn't tell you get off your ass, stop being so lazy, take it upon yourself to make a change. It's your own personal responsibility. It's no one else's responsibility to make you feel better. Like, just because society doesn't fit to what your body, it doesn't mean that society has to conform to you. It means that you have to improve yourself to try and make yourself happier. And so it's nothing to do with other people, it's you. And that's what people have missed, like, fundamentally.
I do think, though, like, especially with social media, like, despite the fact that it should be about how you yourself feel, we want to, for the most part, most people want to impress others. And whether we want to admit it or not, we do want to be desirable to other people. So
Yes.
despite, me wanting to be healthier for myself, so that when I look in the mirror, I'm happier, so that I feel better, so that I have energy. Besides all those things, like, I also always want, I want to be seen as attractive. I want my boyfriend to find me attractive. And I think, like, that, we do inherently, shape ourselves around what others think, despite the fact that that's not the most important thing.
Right.
I think we don't have control over,
Which is exactly my point.
Yeah.
So in that regard, then it's up to you to make that change. Because if you're saying I am not happy with my weight because society has a certain standard that I have to live up to, society's not going to change to make you happy. You have to make that change, right? So it might be an uncomfortable truth, and you may not want to face that as a reality, but it is, and you just have to accept that, because you're never going to be able to grow as an individual if you keep thinking in the victim mindset.
Do you think that society is the biggest problem? Because, and here's what I don't understand, and I want to see what you guys think. So society promotes beautiful bodies by Victoria's Secret and Calvin Klein and all that. But then it also promotes unhealthy habits when a burger costs $2 and a salad costs $10.
Yeah.
So which way is society going? Is it making it too difficult to be perfect?
I was going to say they almost like work hand in hand, because the ideal image of a female body and male body, it's getting more extreme, but it's also, it seems like it's the most, for most people, the most unhealthy way to live. Like, if you were to look that way, it would be very hard on your health and, detrimental over time. You'd get very sick. So I think that's a problem as well.
Well, sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. No, I was just going to say that I think it's also, like, it comes down to the economics of it. Like, if you're a consumer, the restaurant is going to price it so that you buy it. So it has nothing to do with what is forced upon you. It's to do with what you as the consumer is willing to buy. And so if you're going to buy something because it's quick, it's easy, tastes good in the moment, that's what's going to sell. A salad isn't going to sell no matter how much we market it as something that's appealing.
And I think that's why you see so many cases of obesity and poverty and more unhealthy bodies with, in poverty, because people are forced to, consume and purchase food that's affordable. And what's affordable is garbage food, like, a meal at McDonald's, compared to...
It's also cheaper to make, though, too, and that's part of the reason why.
But I mean, you go to, like, this is off track, but you go to any music festival, you're paying $6 for a bottle of water versus $4 for a beer, or a pop, or whatever. That's the case in vending machines. That's the case at restaurants. When you go to a restaurant, you can get free pop refills, as many as you want. But you ask for a bottle of water, or you ask for juice, you're paying for each cup. Not water if you're getting in a cup, but you know what I mean. So our world, it's almost impossible to avoid. If you're in a position where you can't afford to eat really well and healthy, you're almost forced to consume bad food. Not that you can't, work around it, but it's an easy option. It's an easy, solution to hunger. You just buy what's ever cheap, and what's cheap is unhealthy.
Go ahead.
Or I was just going to say, you're almost forced, even in my case, it's very rare, but sometimes, like, if I'm budgeting on a certain day and I want to have an expensive, healthy meal, then I'll compensate and have, I'll eat less throughout the day because I spent more on, like, a bigger meal sort of portion thing. So all in all, it could make you lose weight in a healthy way or gain weight in an unhealthy way. So,
and the thing is, when you talk about the health benefits, you can have junk food just in moderation. But the problem is it's marketed as healthy food as well.
Right, that's true. The amount of sodium in there
Yeah.
is extremely high, and so that can play a factor into why you gain weight.
Yeah.
Coke Zero, for example, 0 calories. This is great for you, but the amount of
But
sugar
what they
in
fill
there.
in is just even worse for you. So.
Yep.
So let's talk about body positivity when it comes to sex, because not only does body positivity relate to your physical appearance just in clothing or in the general life, but you guys were talking about being attractive, and something I'm curious about is, does body positivity impact sex? Does it, if you're comfortable with your body, are you more comfortable in exploring?
Yeah.
Yes.
I would also say the way that it ties into like sex and body positivity go hand in hand. Back to my point about how, you know, we all kind of are attracted to different things, and we have our types. There are people who are attracted to bigger bodies, and if you are an individual who's heavy and your partner is attracted to heaviness, you're probably going to feel better in bed, because you're not going to feel uncomfortable about what you're doing, because you know that your partner is attracted to you and you know that you've got what they want. I think in other scenarios, a lot of people, there's people who don't have types. There's people who just see beauty as beauty. But I think about
Not really physical.
yeah, and in terms, it can be beyond physical. And I think that there, you know, if you do have a sexual partner or partners, and maybe you haven't established, you know, what their type is, for example, or they don't have a type, you're going to want to be as desirable as you can in your own, you know, the way that you see fit. So like, if you, I'm having trouble wording it, but basically, like, we do want to be attractive for our sexual partners, and we want to be able to meet their needs in terms of what they are attracted to. And then in other scenarios, we want to keep ourselves healthy for new partners who.
If I could just interject though, I think that's still like that doesn't. I don't understand how body positivity plays into that. Like, that's up to you and how confident you are as an individual. If you're constantly looking for external validation, you're never going to find happiness.
I think what Christina's trying to get at is if you feel uncomfortable in your own body, if you don't feel attractive to society or even anybody really, to yourself, you're not going to want to explore your sexuality deeply, if at all.
Sure, but that's still internal though. That's still internal. It's nothing to do with society.
Like, let's say you have a new sexual partner, for example, that's never seen you naked. Yeah, maybe it's like a personal thing, but what if you take off your clothes and they actually don't like what they see? Because that can happen.
It's personal, but to a certain point, it's not anymore, and it's also stemmed from the outside, all of it.
Sure, but you're never going to be able to satisfy everyone and everyone that you're going to be with.
Yeah, no, totally. No. I think it's just
the body positivity movement doesn't play a factor into that. If anything, it makes you it makes you hypersensitive to your own body, because you're constantly seeing there's a certain type of body, whether it be obese being okay or just the average body being okay. You're always going to be comparing yourself to a certain body type. And like I said before, we shouldn't be aiming to be beautiful, quote unquote. It's if you're healthy, because if you're healthy, everything else comes along with that.
Yeah. And doesn't healthy mean beautiful?
Yeah,
well,
like it
when
should.
you think about the actual
I would argue that, but I know that the body positivity wouldn't. That's what I'm saying. So there's a contradiction there.
Mm-hmm.
The actual definition of beautiful is pleasing the sense or mind aesthetically, or a very high standard, excellence. So I would agree that health is excellent. It's the most important. Yeah, and biologically, like human nature is, you know,
we're visual creatures.
Yeah, we are visual creatures, and we like to see certain things, and the average person likes.
I like what
healthy.
I like. You like what you like. You like what you like, and maybe some people, you know, have very drastic differences in who they like as a physical appearance.
Yeah.
But you're like part of the problem too is that we as a culture, we just have sex all the time with whoever we find attractive. We don't even get to know them.
And
that ties into the issue as well. If you want to be comfortable with a person, why don't you try going on a couple of dates, get to know them, and then be comfortable with them when you have sex?
That's
Why
like
are
a
you
whole
going
other-
around?
well, this
Well, sure, it's another issue, but that also ties into the problem.
Yeah.
this is where I was going though. Does body positivity promote promiscuity? Does it promote the?
depends.
Does
It can. I think it can for sure. The question is whether promiscuity is entirely negative or not. I think it can get so, but you know, can we define like promiscuous? I'm just gonna look at it.
Well,
in
so
this case-
let's say, does the body positivity movement encourage people
Okay.
to engage in more sex or to be more sexual beings? So let's say when it comes to the Victoria's Secret catwalk,
Yeah.
sure, it's not sexual, like, but they're women in underwear walking up and down a catwalk, and
Well, it is sexual.
Yeah, it is
and so
sexual.
that is. I mean, it's not like saying, you know, it's not. They're not obviously talking
They're
not
not
all about
explicitly
sex.
saying
they're
it, but
not
they are
explicitly.
implicit.
Yeah.
But it is implicit.
Yeah, totally. So I think that, for example, I think a lot of people find empowerment in that, and I don't think there's anything wrong with being promiscuous as long as you're safe. Have as many partners as you want.
Yeah.
That's, and I think
If I could just interject.
Can I? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, let's Tonya.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it makes me think of, I don't think this is that off topic, but just monogamous and polygamous and polyamorous relationships. But I think a lot of why divorce rates are so high, and we see that cheating is like so common, unfortunately, in relationships that are supposed to be monogamous, is because of that point or promiscuity. So we're more confident in our bodies, we'll like have sex with other people, that assumption, or like just not be loyal.
I mean, if you're in a monogamous relationship, the point is that you don't have more than one
like
partner.
you're not.
And
Ideally speaking.
Yeah.
yeah, like I'm in a monogamous relationship, and
Same.
for 5.5 years, I've had one partner, and I stand behind that. I like monogamy.
Yeah.
It makes me happy. It makes me feel comfortable. But I mean, I think people have the right to choose the sexual partners that they have, so long as it's within the bounds of your relationship, and so long as it's safe.
So I absolutely agree that you should be allowed to choose, but the psychological impacts of having numerous partners, you know, in your teens, or just exploring, quote unquote, they are detrimental to your psyche, and that's not up for debate. This is just a known fact that it is.
That's what Jerome is saying as well in the comments.
Right, and so it's so bad to tell people go explore, go have sex with different people, because it actually makes you more confused than ever. It's not a form of sexual liberation. It's complete bullshit. Like, it's not a good thing to do that, and I know it's a controversial thing to say, but I stand by it entirely. I think it's a mistake for people to be told go have sex with people, explore, because that's how you're going to find the person you need.
Do you think that's partly a result of the body positivity movement?
Yeah, I would say
Probably,
so.
especially when you look at social media and the way that bodies are portrayed on, like, say, Instagram. So I think the majority of female influencers on Instagram are posing in their bikinis. It's
And they
based
all
on
look
their
the
body.
same.
It's
Look at
based on
TikTok.
fitness, and they all have the exact same body type, and all the same men in the comments. And now that's so I think, and I don't want to say that I endorse being unsafe or irresponsible, and I'm not saying that it's good to have a million sexual partners, but I just think that in terms of the body positivity movement, I don't think there's anything wrong with telling women and men that they're allowed to explore their sexuality and that they're allowed to.
What does that mean, though, to explore your sexuality?
Well, I think it means something different to every individual.
But then you find problems, because when you want to fix a solution, you're going to say, well, there's so many different routes to take. It's just so complex. We can't pinpoint it. So there has to be an agreed upon point. The very least, we should be able to define what it means to explore your sexuality.
How
Tonya?
about just... So I don't want to bring in like LGBTQ, but maybe that would kind of signify a good example. Like, if I'm comfortable enough I'm not a lesbian, but like, say, if I were to feel better in my body, maybe then I would be more comfortable being open about my sexuality and identity.
Well, that's definitely another thing, is with people who struggle with their sexuality or are coming to terms with their sexuality. If you feel good about yourself, you're more likely to feel liberated about and to have sex with the people that you want to have sex with. So when it comes, like, let's say when it comes to exploring your sexuality, it means maybe you're a gay man or a gay woman and you've been sleeping with the opposite sex for however many years, and it's not what you enjoy, and it's not the real you. Maybe body positivity will liberate you to have sex with the people you want to.
And sure. And that's, we are running out of time, so I just want to say, so I'll start with you then, Keyaan. What is the future of the movement? Are we going to be in a society where more unhealthy behavior is promoted, or is it going to be just be happy with yourself? Or are we going to move to a society where people are going to be more adamant about getting in shape, getting healthy, becoming healthy?
Well, if it wants to head down the same route that feminism did with the third wave feminism, no one takes it seriously anymore, at least no one who is actually rational for the most part. If it wants to go down that road, then, completely, but by all means, say that every single body, obese or not, or severely underweight, is okay. Go down that route. See how that plays out for you, because in a few years, no one's going to take you seriously as a movement. If you want to be taken seriously, address the real issues that we have as a society. You have to step back and realize that there are certain bodies that are bad, but it should be recognized that there are different types of bodies, and we should embrace that, as long as you're healthy, you are in a good position to continue your life.
Tonya?
I agree mostly, but I just want to say that there are multiple healthy bodies. There's not one body that is considered healthy. They all look different, and they're all different lifestyles and diets. So what was that actual like the future of the movement?
Yeah.
I think it's heading in a more positive direction.
In terms of positive as in a good, or more positive, more
I think people are
acceptance?
also realizing that there's danger in saying it's good to be obese, or it's good to be anorexic.
That's my problem. That's my only issue with it.
Yeah.
Well, I think we all agree then.
Yeah.
And
but I guess in this regard, I'm not as optimistic as you guys are with the movement. I think just the way society has come about, they tend to take the alternative route and say, no, we should be completely positive with everyone and every single body, obese or not.
Yeah, I think I can agree with that. Yeah, I think I can agree with that for the most part. Like, I think the future of the movement, I don't even actually see it, like these, modern feminists or radical feminists. I don't see it going down that same route.
Yeah,
I don't think it's going to get to that point where it becomes unreasonable, or it becomes I think we're kind of at a steady place, and I see it kind of continuing that way, because it's the way that I've seen the body positivity movement has been the same for a few years now. So I kind of see it continuing on that way. And I do hope this is a hope. It's not necessarily going to happen, but I do hope that the future of the body positivity movement promotes being healthy, but also promotes being happy with who you are and how you look, because it's impossible for us all to be one way.
Yeah.
So I guess then I would just leave off by saying that if it goes down to its roots, to what it started off as a movement of body positivity, then, it will flourish, and I think that it will make a positive change. If it continues the way it is right now, as it currently stands, it's going to go, it's gone. The movement will suffer.
And I have to say, great discussion, but that's where we're going to end today. That was our show for this week. Thank you to everybody that tuned in and that messaged us live. Keyaan, thank you for being part of the show today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Wonderful discussion, guys.
Just a comment shout out. I just wanted to shout out. We had a lot of recurring comments. We've got Sam and his wife. Moralia. I always butcher that. Jerome, Marshall. Many comments from all of them. They're the primary commenters. So shout out to them for keeping it all entertaining and joining in on the discussion.
Could I say something?
Yeah.
If anyone's watching who is conservative, feel free to like our page on Facebook. We're gonna have a lot of events. They will be virtual, but it's gonna be a ton of fun. I am the vice president, so feel free to reach out, and we'll get you involved.
And same thing, if you support the Liberal Party or the NDP Party or the Green Party, we accept everyone. So to you as well, Tonya, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
It was, what'd you think?
I loved it. Yeah, it was
Come
great.
again.
I would love to.
and we would love to have you. So that was our show for this week. Thank you to everybody that tuned in, messaged us live. Once again, a brand new episode of the Raben Report will be coming to you next week, same day, same time, almost same people. Have a great day, everyone.